Welcome to In the Black, where we celebrate stories of transformation, resilience, and rising into the life you were meant to live. I'm your host, Aracelli, and this space was created to amplify voices often overlooked. Women who've come through the fire with wisdom, strength, and heart. Whether you're here for healing, clarity, or just good conversation, you belong here. Let's get into it. Today on the podcast, we're welcoming a woman whose story is a powerful testament to resilience, transformation, and purpose. Minister Jalisa Hardy, also known as the Golden Child, has walked through the fire and emerged with a mission to help other women rise from their ashes. A survivor of abuse, financial struggle, and personal loss, Jalisa has turned her pain into a purpose driven life. From navigating a painful divorce and raising three young children on her own to building a thriving coaching business rooted in healing, holistic health, and spiritual alignment. Her story is both deeply personal and universally inspiring. Jalisa is a board certified holistic health practitioner, healer, human design expert, and trauma of money certified professional. She's also the founder of She's Ready Society, a sacred space that empowers women to heal, grow, and transform their pain into power emotionally, spiritually, and financially. If you've ever wondered how to rise when life knocks you down, or how to rewrite your story no matter where you come from, this episode is for you. Welcome, Jalisa, to my podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I hear my bio and I'm like, yeah, that's really me. But I tend to, I'm really in awe of all that I've accomplished, even despite the challenges. So, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Isn't that the truth? Sometimes it just takes the outside perspective to kind of be like, girl, you've done so much. Like, let's give yourself a round of applause. So, go ahead and tell us a little bit of yourself. It could be a very, very small introduction, it could be whatever you want to cover. And then we're going to jump into the questions.
Yes, you shared a lot about me, but at the foundation of who I am, I'm just me. I'm not too different from anybody else. I might have a lot of accomplishments, a lot of accolades, but I'm just me, and I truly believe that we're all connected, and it's not by happenstance that we're here on this podcast together. And I'm just excited to share, what comes up from this conversation, and to, impact the lives of the people that hear it.
Awesome. So let's go back to the beginning. What was the moment in your life when everything started to fall apart, and how did you begin to rebuild from that rock bottom?
Mm. So I can really start from the very beginning why my brand is the golden child. Things could have really fallen apart from conception. My parents were separated on their way to getting a divorce. When my mom was pregnant with me, she had already had two miscarriages and was never able to carry a pregnancy full term. She had my sister 4 years before me, but it took her 10 years to get pregnant with her. So it was a long journey for her to become a mom. And when she got pregnant with me, she says it wasn't a oops, but it just wasn't planned. She said because we weren't planning on staying together. So from there, she had a lot of complications with her pregnancy. 4 months her pregnancy with me. So 4 months into the pregnancy, they ran the test and they told her that I would have Down syndrome. And then 6 months into her pregnancy, they told her that I would be born without a stomach and that my esophagus and windpipe would be fused together. So their recommendation for her and her pregnancy was for her to terminate the pregnancy. And she just decided that, I see the test results, I see the scans, I see the anatomy scan, what you're showing me, but I'm believing for a different outcome. So for her, being a faith-based woman, she decided, I'm not going to believe what the doctors are saying, and I'm not going to agree to terminate my pregnancy because she believed that it was a reason for me to be here. And she went to church, she went to a revival, she had them pray over her, and she said the only thing that she remembers is feeling like she was being lifted off of her feet and that God was pouring gold into her stomach. And when she went back to the doctor, they couldn't find anything wrong with me. They reran all the tests, did the anatomy scans, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And that, for me, hearing that and knowing that story, it was like my life could have ceased to be from the very beginning. Things were falling apart even from conception because they weren't planning on staying together. Now years later, I've gone through a lot of different things, but I feel like knowing that gave me the motivation and the faith and the resilience to move forward despite anything that has happened to me. So when you ask that question, like at what point do you feel like life was falling apart? It was like from the very beginning. Life could have been very different had my mom decided to go along with what the doctors were telling her and recommending. So
So, how long did she go? And this is just, I'm curious, how long did she go to, you know, how they do different terms? So it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever. How long did she go until like she had everyone pray over her and then she felt that happen and then going back to get retested?
it was around the same time, that like the 6 to 7 month mark, once they gave her that diagnosis, the second set of diagnosis. Um, and then she probably doesn't remember. I've never even asked her that question as far as like the timeline of everything. But
She
that's a
was
good
six
question.
to 7 months,
Huh?
but she was about around 6 to 7.
Yeah.
And then,
Mhm.
so really, you have like 2 months left to
Mhm.
miraculously finish forming inside her. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so
Because she
cool.
did end up going full term with the pregnancy with me. Um, so even that was a miracle because, like I said, she had never gone full term with the pregnancy. They had to like suture her in order for her to hold the pregnancies in, and she was on bed rest. So it was a lot. It was definitely a lot for her. But she even wrote in a collaboration book about me being her miracle child because of how everything happened. So
I love it. Yeah, so I was gonna ask the golden child thing just and I didn't even think it was gonna go down that path. I figured you were a favorite child or golden child, loved so much or something. But yeah, that's an awesome.
no, it was actually the opposite growing up.
Oh no.
yeah, my dad called me the problem child. That was yeah. Yeah.
Oh no. Dang, you kept him on the toes all the time then, from inception to all the way up until I'm hoping maybe 18 years old.
um
But you still keep them on their toes.
Yeah, probably around 18. I went to college at 17. I graduated a year early from high school. So probably around 17. I was still yeah.
So you said your parents weren't planning on staying together. Is that what you were kind of saying? But they
Nope.
sounds like they maybe did.
They did, but even that's a whole another conversation because they probably shouldn't have. Because now 38 years later, they've divorced. So that's a whole other experience that shaped me into who I am, but parts of it are like I wish I didn't have to go through those things.
Oh, yeah, understandable.
Yeah,
Maybe.
not having a healthy example of a relationship and what love looked like,
Mhm.
it shaped how I related to men, how I was in relationships with men, and even my relationship with my father, I feel like has always been toxic. So the way that I navigated my relationships with other people was based off of that toxic relationship.
Mm, yeah. So you speak openly about surviving abuse and financial hardship. What was the hardest part of that season, or were there multiple seasons? And what kept you going when it felt impossible to move forward?
There were multiple seasons, pretty much from age 3 up until I left my marriage in 2022. Um, so there have been a series of abusive events, whether it was family, relationships, um, yeah, even self abuse. It was there were a lot of experiences, but because, like I said, that the experiences that I had with my parents and that toxic and abusive relationship, I just normalized it. I thought it was how life was supposed to be. I was I talked to my therapist about this and I tried to like kind of reframe it specifically for podcast interviews. But my family had a history of incest and sexual abuse, and I was the one to break that and really start talking about it and speaking out about it at the age of 20. And um, we didn't really know until I started talking about it, what was going on. And the family member who was actually sexually abusing me was being sexually abused by two other family members. So it was just a lot of, and we were only 3.5 years apart. So we were kids. So what was being done to her, she was doing to me. So it was a lot of things that I was exposed to at the age of 3 until I was 13 that turned me into the quote unquote problem child. And that's why when it comes to people who are having difficulties, have addictions, are the quote unquote problem child, I ask the question, what happened to you? Because it's a cry for help. It's a a way that you get an outlet from what you've experienced to try to deal with the pain, whether you're suppressing it or it's coming out in different ways. So for me, with my experiences, how I got through them was, one, remembering my origin story, knowing that there was a reason for me to be here, and finally being able to talk about it and share about it and know that my story, my experiences weren't just for me, they weren't about me solely. I had these experiences to be able to support and share and help others get through their situation and know that on the other side of it that there's still hope.
I love that. So interesting that the therapist got to the point. Now, how did you? Okay, so it's interesting that a therapist got to the point where, like, the young kid that was doing that to you, did you already know that that was being done to them, or did she kind of help you realize that that was being done to them? And did you go and kind of talk to that person and to see if that actually happened, or how did you know that this was a common thing in your family?
So it wasn't until I started talking about it, I had a conversation with my mom until I was about 20, I think I was around 2021 when I finally told my mom what happened. And she was very, very, very overprotective to the point where, we couldn't do the sleepovers, the spending the night. There was no, closing doors and being around, boy cousins. She was specifically focused on the males. And what I found out, because like I said, my mom was very, very open, honest. We talked about sex, we talked about boys, we talked about, any and every conversation that came up. So she was always very open about her past experiences that she had. But what she never told anyone was that she was sexually abused by her uncle as a child. And she had never told anyone because that was the thing that she was trying to protect her children from, not knowing that these things happen not only with males but females can be predators as well. So, and that was our case with me and that family member. So it was a lot of, and then even after that, my mom went out of town like maybe 2 weeks later after I told her what happened and was talking to some other family members down south. And she told them, what happened, what was going on, and they were like, "That happened to you too?" There are things that are going on in families that people aren't talking about because there's shame, there's guilt, there's blame, there's fear around, okay, if I tell someone, what are they going to do, or what is the predator going to do? So there was a lot of secrecy, there was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of dysfunction and feeling like, oh, this is the norm. For me specifically as a child, I didn't know any different. So it took me until, I was 20 and I started to go to therapy and I started to understand why I was acting out the way that I was, why I experienced so much anger, why I was abusing drugs, why I was drinking so much alcohol. It was because I was trying to suppress these experiences and trying to make sense of them at the same time. So when I started to talk about it, that was when I realized, okay, and my mom had the conversation with that person that it was happening to them too. And being kids, like I said, we were kids. We didn't know any better. So, and that was one of the things that really helped me to heal and forgive because we were just kids. And
Yeah.
it wasn't out of ill will or maliciousness. It was out of that feeling like that was what was normal.
Yeah. Dang, that's crazy. So the therapist said that the kid was doing this because we thought that was normal. Did did you ever talk to that person and talk about it, or is it still kind of weird, or do you just not talk about it and just forgive and like move on?
I've forgiven and I've moved on. I've tried to have conversations with the individual, um, but they are the type that grew up with the example of if you don't talk about it or if you don't deal with it, it'll go away. So trying to have those conversations, it was just avoided and overlooked. And again, it took some time for me to move past that and forgive without an acknowledgement, without an apology, without even, because there were parts of me that felt like maybe I just imagined it. Maybe that wasn't really what happened. Because when you're traumatized, you suppress it and you try to deal with it the best way you can. And to this day, my memory of my childhood is very, very like in and out. Like I know some parts I don't. So it's just I've had to really process through a lot of it and forgive despite any acknowledgement or despite really knowing exactly what happened.
So it's crazy. It's mind blowing that with the kids doing this as if it's normal, a lot of that is something to kind of look into.
Yeah, because if it's basically normalized by the predators, it doesn't matter boy, girl, and that was the instance with my mom's uncle. The boys, the girls, it was no like, oh, just girls or just boys. It was everybody. And you grow up with, cousins, family members that are addicted to drugs, that are addicted to alcohol, and nobody talks about it. It's just, oh, they have an addiction, but 90, I would say 90% of the people that have addictions are because they have experienced some type of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that they cope. That's the way that they deal with it. And if you don't have the opportunity or the outlet to share it with someone, I've had conversations with people, many of people who have told someone or a close family member or a mom or a dad that their significant other was, doing something inappropriate to them and they didn't believe them.
Mm-hmm.
They would either get put out or they would get blamed or they would just say, "Oh, that didn't happen. I don't believe you." And
Yeah.
it's like that is why these things are normalized and why these things people go unheard and they just deal with the trauma the best way that they know how because you have those experiences where you go to court and no one believes you. And you have to be the one to bear the burden of proof of something that happened years ago when it's just your word against theirs. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that is why I talk so much about it, because there are children who don't have a voice but are going through these experiences and don't know what to do, who they can talk to, or if you see a shift or a change in your child, notice these things and realize that something is going on. They're not just angry, they're not just quote unquote like they were talking, they called me fast or promiscuous. These things don't just come out of nowhere. Find out what's going on, find out what's happening instead of labeling your child or labeling the person in your life. Find out what happened to them. Find out what's going on. Why are they acting out in this way, and what needs are being unmet, or what things are happening to them that is causing them to act out in this way.
Mm, yeah. So going back to how you were the first to stop the cycle, did you do that with speaking? And how do you know that that stopped in your family?
So it definitely was speaking. I'm a very spiritual person. And I do believe that there are generational curses that, are held in place by the silence. Those things continue to be perpetuated because nobody's talking about it, and nobody knew what was going on. When you can shine a light on the darkness, that's when it no longer has control over you or your family. And for me, having my children, that was one of the things that I knew that I had to deal with, even before I had my children, that I had to deal with and heal from, because I didn't want my children to have those same experiences. Because a lot of it had to do with my mom having her own challenges, her own issues, not being able to really pay attention to the signs of what was going on because she was going through it with my dad. She was trying to deal with her past, the things that she experienced. And for me, it's about the belief. I truly believe that I've broken that curse with my family. So my children won't have to go through those same experiences. And me having the awareness and the mindfulness and the discernment to know, how to navigate situations and the different people that might come around. Especially now, I was just having a conversation with someone about being a single mom and dating, and finding out that one of the guys I used to date is now on the sexual predator list. And it's like, man, you have to be very, very diligent and very mindful of the people that you allow into your life and allow around your children as a single mom. Because there are people that literally prey on people, on single moms with kids, because they feel like, oh, they're vulnerable, or they don't have other people around. But I make sure that my support system, my community, and my mental health and sanity is in place, so that when people do come around, I'm able to see the signs and know what's going on.
Yeah, that's very important to know. Could you share for listeners what some signs to look for would be?
If they're very, very off, like in the beginning, like very interested in your kids, like they'll ask questions about you, but it's like they'll start to ask questions more and more about the kids, like, oh, what are they doing? Where are they at? This, that, and the third. And checking on case search, checking on the child predator list. Like every state has one, they have one globally. So being very diligent about knowing, okay, you don't know this person. I had to learn. I used to trust people until they gave me a reason not to. But my therapist, she's like, no, you have to trust but verified. Trust, you have to know that someone is trustworthy before giving them your trust. So that's a part of it. But predators are very, very manipulative and sneaky. You don't know what you don't know. So that's why for me, it's being spiritually guided, being intuitively guided, and being aware of the energy that people bring. Because you never know. It might could just be the way that they look at you or the way that they look at your child. just certain signs that you might miss if you're not paying attention.
I was just gonna say, do you get that energy feeling? I always feel, and people have noticed, they're like, do you analyze people? Are you good at like analyzing? I'm like, dude, I've been doing that since I was a kid. I started doing that and I started noticing it more as an adult. But yeah.
You got to trust your gut, trust your intuition. Everybody has an aura, an energy about them. Everybody vibrates at a different frequency, whether it's a high frequency or a low frequency, but you can feel that when someone is around you.
Mhm.
So being in tune to where you are energetically, that's going to be the most important thing, because that'll help you be in tune to the people around you and even your kids. Like my one of my mom's friends, she came over to the house, and my daughter, she's usually very like, vocal and talking to people. My daughter literally hid under the table the entire time she was here. Your kids, if you're not aware, your kids will tell you and show you who a person is and how their energy is. So it's important to pay attention to them, and don't, like, for me, I don't make my kids hug people, family members. Like, they're like, oh, why don't they? No, if they don't want to give you a hug, I'm not going to make them give you a hug. And you can either respect their boundaries or not be around them,
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
I'm not going to make my kids feel uncomfortable just because you feel like they should respect you and give you a hug. No. If they don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to make them do something that they're uncomfortable with. They're
Mm.
little people. They're not less than me just because they're younger than me or they came from me, or any less than you because they're younger than you, or your niece, your nephew, your grandchild. I don't care. If they don't want to hug you or they don't want to be around you, I'm not going to make them do something.
And that's so beautiful. I feel like that may be different from what maybe you were brought up with, or maybe not, but that's different from what I was brought up with. Because it was like, no, the kids don't know anything. Listen to the adults. And like with energy, there was this one guy, my mom's friend, that they would always hang out and drink, and the kids would just hang out because the parents are drinking. There was this one old guy. I don't remember the connection, but he asked me to go downstairs to the basement with him. And I just felt like, no, I didn't. It felt like if I went down there, it would be like what my dad would do to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just avoided it and I just felt that. So, yeah, having that energy, sensing, and, being forced to be nice and kind to adults, even when you don't want to, that's, that's
Yeah,
very
because kids, they don't have, depending on how you raise them, I'll say, they don't have a filter. They're going to tell you how they feel. They're going to tell you what's going on, what they think, what's on their mind, what comes up for them when they meet someone. They're going to tell you, they're going to be very honest with you. We've been conditioned to try to, like you said, give people a benefit of the doubt, try to see if they're going to be okay, instead of, as soon as I feel that energy and I don't like it, kids are like, nope, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to try to figure it out or try to give people a chance. If I don't feel that this energy is where I want to be around somebody that I want to be around, they're like, no. But we're growing up like, oh, try to give people a chance. Kids, they're so in tune with their intuition. They're so in tune with what they like and what they don't like. Why not trust them? So for me, when people say, "Oh, this kids don't know any better," they probably know better than we do.
Say that again. Say that loud. All right, so let's see if I can move on. Moving forward to now the divorce chapter of your life. So, divorce is such a personal and painful journey. Can you walk us through that experience, especially doing it while raising three toddlers? So, what did you learn about yourself during that difficult time?
So my ex-husband, my now ex-husband, he was my college sweetheart. And we were friends for 3 years before we even started dating. And one of the things that I learned is, not only are you a different version of yourself in different situations, where it was different being friends with him than it was dating, And once we got engaged and he moved in, that was a different version of both of us. And then once we got married, it was a totally different experience. So for me, knowing that now, I see how I was able to grow and learn and change through those situations and circumstances. But a lot of it was that I settled because I was 27 or 28. And, growing up in certain cultures, they're like, oh, if you're 30, you don't have kids by that time. What's wrong with you? Why are you still single? Why is this? Why is that? Da, 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 da. So there was a lot of pressure. And my mom didn't have any grandkids. So she was always, oh, I want grandkids. My friends have grandkids. This, that, and the third. So for me, I was in a series of toxic and abusive relationships. So for me, going into it with him, we had a foundation of friendship. We knew each other. I knew his family. So I felt safer in this relationship with him. And and because of that foundation and the love that we built in the beginning, I overlooked things that I shouldn't have. And him finally, proposing after we broke up, and I knew that I shouldn't have gone back. It was going back to, okay, we have history, we have a friendship, I've grown to know his family, we love each other. Let's see how this can work. And up to that point, nobody else had proposed, nobody else was talking about marriage. So I'm like, let's see how this goes, because I didn't want to have my children outside of marriage. That was one thing. And to I wanted to have a marriage with someone who had the same values and the same beliefs, and I thought we did. But the more time went by and the more aware I was, I realized that that wasn't the case.
Mm.
And the more I overlooked and the more that I forgave, the more he pushed the envelope to do things and get his way. Um, but I tell people all the time, I do believe that if we didn't have children, I probably would have stayed to try to work it out, because I had grown such a tough skin because of everything else that I had gone through. It was like the things that he was doing was no longer phasing me. And that was when he realized that he started to take it out on our kids.
Mm.
And our oldest became the scapegoat, because it's like, okay, well, I know that I can get to you. I know that I can ruffle your feathers if I do something to the kids. So when I realized that, I realized I had to go, because I didn't want my kids to be in therapy all these years later, 20 years, 30 years, 10 years later, wondering why mommy didn't protect them, wondering why mommy stayed, wondering why mommy didn't leave when I saw the things that were going on.
Yeah. Wow. So you had mentioned, and I think it was like the comfort level. You've already worked on it. You know this person. You've built up so much of a relationship. You knew their family. And you had mentioned you had broken up before he had proposed, and you knew that you probably shouldn't have gone back. Can you speak to what that was, and why did you go back? Well, I mean, I guess you kind of answered why did you went back, but I guess
So
why?
the situation was, he had this ability to manipulate. He really still does, but that's a whole nother story. But he's such a manipulator. Like, he can convince you that things are not as bad as they seem. So his way of cheating was, and making it seem like that wasn't what it was he was just having inappropriate conversations with other women. And when I would find out about it, it was, oh, I didn't do anything. So why are you making such a big deal out of it? I didn't physically touch them or physically do anything with them. So it's not that big of a deal. Because he knew my past. He knew I'd been cheated on before. He knew all of those things as far as like the physical abuse that I dealt with in other relationships. So it was never to that extent, but it was always that red flag that I knew was a red flag, but he would paint it to be like, it's just a yellow flag. Like, it's just not that bad. Like, it's really not that bad. Like, you've been through worse. This isn't that. So for me, it was like, okay, well, it's really not that bad. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's really not that bad. But I knew that these weren't things that I wanted in a relationship. So an incident happened where he picked me up. I lived about 45 minutes away from him, and me having my intuition, knowing that something was going on, I went through his phone and I saw that he had multiple females that he was having inappropriate conversations with. And when I confronted him about it, he exploded and blamed me. Why would you go through my phone? This is your fault. You like, everything was me. Not, oh, I shouldn't have been having those inappropriate conversations. It was, why would you go through my phone? But every single time I would have this feeling like something was going on. Like, it wasn't just randomly I was going through it. It was like I had this feeling that something was happening and something was going on. And every single time my intuition was right. So for me, it was having that experience and then him putting me out in the rain. He picked me up, but he put me out of his house in the rain, threatened to call the police to get me out of his house. And I called my brother-in-law. Well, he was just my sister's boyfriend at the time, but I called him to come pick me up because I wasn't driving. And he comes outside and he's like threatening me, yelling, like has his fist balled up, and I'm just like standing there. I'm on the phone with one of my sorority sisters who was not too far because I was about to either walk to her house or catch the bus or something just to get away from his neighborhood until my brother came to get me. And he's like, um, I'm just like calmly trying to diffuse the situation. I'm like, I'm out of your house. Like, just go ahead, go in the house, leave me alone. I'm out of your house. Just leave. Like, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm not trying to fight with you. And he's like just yelling in my face. I'm backing up. I'm like, he's like, just touch me so I can punch you. Like, it was like so terrible to the point where, like I said, I should have never even given him a chance. But me being where I was, me being as forgiving as I was because of what I went through in my childhood, I'm like, I forgave them for that. So I can forgive him too. So I gave him another chance. And I think it was 2 weeks before we got married, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do because, like I said, living with him was a completely different version of him that I had never seen. Like, I knew that there was some red flags and toxic behavior, but living with him, it was a completely different, like, the mask had come off because he's gotten comfortable. Like, I'm home now. You're going to see all of the red flags. You're going to see all of the misbehavior. You're going to see all of the toxicity because now I've got you. Like, I'm here now and you're not getting rid of me. So 2 weeks before we got married, we got into this huge argument and he's like, well, I'm just going to leave. I'm like, okay, I'll help you. I will help you. Started packing his bag. And as I'm walking down the sidewalk, he comes up behind me. He's like, don't touch my stuff. Don't touch my stuff. Punches me in the top of my head. I fall to the ground and he bear hugs me. And I'm like screaming for help. He's like, be quiet. You're going to wake up the neighbors. Be quiet. Be quiet. And again, with the manipulation and the lies. I told people started to come outside and I told them what happened. He's like, no, I didn't hit her. I would never hit a woman. I've never hit a woman in my life. I was trying to grab her to keep her from taking my stuff out. And because she had a silky bonnet on, it felt like I hit her. In my mind, I'm like, I know exactly what happened. But the more he told the story, the more he repeated it, the more he gaslit, the more I'm like, okay, maybe because I was turned around, I didn't actually see it. So I started to believe it. But I was also this was one of the realizations that I had from a podcast interview. They were like, why did you stay? And I was like, because I was afraid, but it was also because I loved him and I wanted it to work. And I wanted what he was saying to be true, that he would never do that or it would never happen again. That we could work it out. We literally, like, his brother came, we prayed together, and even after that, he was so cold towards me because he was angry that I had almost exposed him. And that experience, 2 weeks later, I walked down the aisle, and as I get to the door, my parents knew what happened. I get to the door and I'm like bawling, crying. My dad is like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He's like, "We can walk, we can turn around and walk away right now." And I still walked down the aisle. I fixed my face, dried up the tears, put on my best smile, and I walked down the aisle. And that's what I did for almost 3 years. Put on my best face, put on my smile, made it seem like everything was okay, especially for my kids, because the way that everything happened really fast. Because we got married. 6 months later, I got pregnant with my first. My water broke at 28 weeks. I ended up having him at 30 weeks and 3 days. He was in the NICU for 45 days. Before he was out of the NICU, I was pregnant with my second. Didn't find out about that pregnancy until I was about 12 weeks along. So my older two kids are 10 and a half months apart. And then we were trying to work things out. And then right before we found out that I was pregnant with my third, his mom passed. And his way of grieving was returning to those toxic behaviors of the lying, the manipulation, the cheating, but it wasn't just the normal, it was like times 10. And me being freshly postpartum, I was like, this isn't going to work. This is not going to work. But I kept trying to figure things out because he was the sole provider for our family. And he told me, he said, if you divorce me, I'm not going to help you with these kids financially. And that was the one time that he told the truth and nothing but the truth. Because for 2 years, he didn't pay child support, didn't help with the kids. It took some time for him to really come to the realization. And I don't think he really has come to the realization that he's not getting me back, because he'll still like say certain things. And I'm like, I don't care how much healing you do, how much therapy you do, it's never going to happen.
So it wasn't mandating in the state that you're in for him to help child support. It was
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he had one of those things that my dad did where he would not hold a job and like keep
Yep,
running. Yep. Okay.
exactly. He literally, the job that he had, he was there for like 3 years. And because he was in such mental distress from me filing for divorce and getting the protection order against him, that he just couldn't stay at work. And he walked off the job and they fired him. And after that, he didn't keep a job. This was the longest, this year, I would say this is the longest he's kept a job since 2022. Um, so it was, and even now it's still inconsistent with the help. So I've had to figure it out. Thankfully, I have my family. I've had to get on government assistance to get support. Building my business, doing certain things, but it's not easy doing it alone without the person that you had your kids with. It's like, because I was literally just having a conversation with my mom, and it's hard for me to ask for help from other people because I feel like it's my responsibility, because the other the other parent isn't doing what they're supposed to do. So it's all left to me to do. But my mom, she's amazing. She's literally a godsend. She's like, listen, I'm here. She's like, I live that life of being a single mom, and and she was married. Okay. that like my mom and dad, that whole situation. She's like, I had to do it myself. She said, so I'm going to make sure that I can do what I can so that you have the help and support that you need. And that's how I've gotten through this whole divorce separation situation, because he's now, just now, I would say this year, really trying to come around and be around more. Because it was once, maybe every 2 to 3 months that he would come see them. So
Yeah. And then some a little bit that you mentioned earlier was he went 10 times, like he went back to cheating and stuff like that, but it was like 10 times worse. So are you saying that after marriage and up until your third child, before his mom passed away, that he was the man that you wanted him to be?
to an extent, but again, it was because I had normalized dysfunction. My therapist, the therapist that I had during the separation, she helped me see. She said, Jalisa, you've normalized dysfunction. She's like, that stuff is not okay. She's like, it's never been okay. She said, but now you're seeing it because it's so much more, because this is how he's choosing to deal with his grief. She said, but it's never been okay. It's always been dysfunctional. So
So
for me, it was just that I had normalized. I had gone through so much from childhood, from adolescence, different experiences, being sexually assaulted multiple times. Like it was like I had just normalized this. Like, okay, well, it's not that bad. I can handle it. I got thick skin. But the straw was when I witnessed him physically abusing our 2 year old at the time. And he tried to gaslight me and to manipulate me into believing that I didn't see what I saw with my own eyes. And I said, you know what? At that point, I knew that it was over. I knew that I couldn't go back from seeing what I saw and make it seem like everything was okay.
mm, it's crazy. So yeah, it was continuing to be the same and then it just got worse. But
Mm-hmm.
everything happens for a reason. Maybe you needed to have the kids so that you could finally see that things weren't normal. I always like to have the
Yes, absolutely. The silver lining. My kids were literally the best thing that ever happened to me, because not only have I been able to provide them a life of peace and a healthy lifestyle, a healthy home that I didn't have, I've been able to heal my inner child by navigating parenting in such a conscious way, because my inner child is seeing like this is really how love is supposed to look. This is how a positive parenting experience is supposed to look. Because for me, it was, I didn't want to get a divorce, one because I had religious beliefs that made me believe that divorce wasn't an option, and then the other thing was I didn't want to raise my children in a broken home. But what I realized was that if one or two people in that home is broken, you're still raising your children in a broken home. So I had to get out of that marriage to heal and become whole, so that I wouldn't continue to perpetuate this cycle of raising my children in a broken home.
absolutely. Yes. I love how you're intuitive. That is how I am. I'm breaking the cycle. Yeah, no, I love that. It's crazy how you're the kid who's like putting a stop to this and raising your children differently, and I'm the one in my family who's doing the same. But it's yeah, it's powerful. And
Yeah,
so
it's powerful, but it can be a heavy load, a heavy burden. It's definitely something that is generations of things that you're dealing with, and that you're releasing from your bloodline. So it's definitely not easy, but it's always worth it.
absolutely. And then this next question, you've kind of already answered it, but then I wanted to just see if you had any advice or other advice for other women or people dealing with the situation. So it says, as women, we're often taught to survive quietly. What made you decide to speak out and not just survive but thrive? And so I feel like you've kind of already touched on that. So can you just give advice that may help others do the same?
Yeah. I'm actually reading this book right now called A New Earth. I think his name is Eckhart Tolle. Um, but he talks about how our experiences aren't, basically, they're not in vain. So for me, it's about understanding that I'm a masterpiece, you're a masterpiece, our lives are a masterpiece, and masterpieces require mess. Sometimes it's more messy than we want it to be, but any experience that you have or have had or will have is all a part of that masterpiece. That is you, that is your life. It's all going to be worth it. It's all going to work out. You can get to the other side of it and heal and be stronger and better than what you are. But know that there's nothing wrong with you as you are. Even with the experiences, you are born enough, you are born valuable, you are born worthy. The experiences that you've had, the things that people have done to you, the things that people have said to you can't take away or add to your value, your worth, or your enoughness. So for me, it's about understanding and knowing that even when it comes to what they say is trying to find your purpose, you are your purpose. Being you and being the most authentic version of yourself is your purpose, because there's only one you in the whole entire world, and there will never be another you when you're gone. So if you're struggling to find your purpose, even in the midst of a traumatic experience, know that it's never been gone. You've never lost your purpose, and it's all going to work out one way or another, but you don't have to do it alone. Always be okay with knowing that there's someone out there like me, like you, that have gone through these experiences, and we are willing to be here for you, to hold space for you as you navigate this challenging time in your life.
Man, you just got some really good little quotes to just keep going out to people. I love it. Okay, so we're going to move forward into let's talk about She's Ready Society. What inspired its creation and what transformation have you seen in the women who join?
So She's Ready Society is one of my communities that I created for those that have a story to tell, that want to self-publish a book, whether it's a book, a planner, a journal, maybe even a children's book. I just recently did a inner child healing workshop and supported people with getting the story out of their inner child, or writing the story that their inner child may have needed to hear when they were going through what they were going through. Um, so it's a very holistically healing experience that gives them the opportunity to share their story in a way that aligns with, not only we talked about their energy, but it aligns with their energetic blueprint, it aligns with their personality. So it's a very personalized community to get you the support that you need with sharing your story, with publishing and writing your story. And for me, everything that I do, I know that it's not just for the people that are a part of it. I grow so much being able to share the things that come up, being able to support people with, being able to get those breakthroughs about sharing their story, because a lot of people have this desire to write a book, but they're stuck because, okay, what are people going to think? How do I deal with the shame and the guilt around what I've experienced, so that I can actually tell my story from a space of peace, and knowing that I'm no longer in that place, I'm no longer that person. So it's a very, I don't just, support you with writing your book. It's a very holistically healing experience where you're changed on the other side of it. And you have a community of women there to support you to do the same.
So, are you coaching and helping people write those stories and kind of mentally getting out of their own way and knowing how to write it and also helping them publish
Yes,
and
I do. My team and I, we do the whole nine. So there are two tiers in She's Ready Society. So there's the general tier, and then there's the gold tier. So the general tier is where we do it with you. We walk through the process with you of writing, of navigating those challenging situations, those things that might keep you stuck, And then we have a done for you option where you still get that support of, the healing journey, those processing, but we do the editing, we do the formatting, we do the uploading, the design of the cover, all of that for you. Um, so yeah.
That sounds amazing. I love that. I'm excited to put that link. But yeah, no, that sounds so, so good. So the next question here is, you've built a life that's deeply spiritual, but also practical. How do you help women align their spiritual path with financial abundance?
Yes. I love it. I love that question. I was literally just having a conversation with two of my cousins earlier today about that and everything that I do. So you mentioned I'm trauma of money certified. But I'm a human design expert as well. So I combine the trauma of money where I'm able to support you with understanding, navigating, and healing your relationship with money, because every interaction, whether it's with a person or a thing, we have a certain type of relationship based off of our childhood. That 0 to 7 age range where we had those different experiences that made us believe a certain way, whether it was about people, about money, about business, about everything is developed during that 0 to 7 age range. So we're able to deal with those things so that moving forward, you're able to have a relationship with money that is supportive. It doesn't cause you to feel like I always have to be grinding, I always have to be hustling, I always have to be working in order to build financial freedom. There are a lot of people that work 80, 90 hours a day, a week, and are still not financially free. So I help them to shift their mindset when it comes to building wealth, when it comes to building businesses, when it comes to financial freedom, to do it in a way that aligns with your energy through human design, but also aligns with the life that you desire to live. And a lot of it has to do with those limiting beliefs that you have to work hard in order to earn money. That's what we're taught. That's what we're conditioned to believe. Like we have to work hard in order to earn money. Not that we are wealth, not that we are abundance, not that we can attract wealth and abundance by just being who we are. We don't have to necessarily work in order to receive money. There have been times where I literally did nothing and checks came in and I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is nice. Like this, like I've shifted these beliefs, but when it actually happens, it's like, oh, this is real. Like this is really real. But we've been conditioned to believe that we have to work hard in order to make money. And the more we believe that, the deeper that belief goes, and the more our environment, our experiences show up to go along with that belief. It's just like if you decide, okay, I want this type of car. You go do your test drive and you never really looked before to see it, but as soon as you go off that lot with your car, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to
Mhm.
see it all around because that's what you're focused on. Because okay, now you have one, so now you're going to see it everywhere. It's the same way with building wealth. The more that you focus on the idea and the belief that you can build wealth without having to work yourself to death, the more your environment, the more your experiences correspond with that belief. But I do energetic work as well to support people with identifying and releasing those limiting beliefs. And we're taught, again, it's this long, drawn out process, but literally you can shift those beliefs in an instant and start to see change in your life because it starts with your belief.
I love
It's
that.
it's about shifting those limiting beliefs in order for your experiences to shift around you. And know that no, it's not going to be perfect, but eventually you'll start to see like, oh, my nervous system doesn't freak out when either I don't have money, because a lot of people freak out when they don't have money, but some people freak out when they do because they're like, I got to get rid of this money. I don't know what to do with it. Somebody's going to take it. Like our nervous system will freak out if we have not healed our relationship with money. Our nervous system is not going to be able to navigate lean seasons because in business there are lean seasons and then there are seasons of abundance. So for me, doing that work, that inner work to heal my relationship with money, do the work on my nervous system through trauma of money, having different things in place. When situations happen, it's like, oh, it'll work out. Literally, I've had people like steal money from me, and I'm like, it'll work out. And
Wow.
every single time it does, because I believe it.
That's
And
awesome.
not just speak it, but I truly believe it energetically that it's going to work out.
Yeah, I love that. And then the next question, there's so much pressure on single moms. What advice would you give to a mother listening right now who feels stuck, exhausted, and unsure of what's next?
You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be everything and do everything for your kids. You're only one person. You're only one person. You can only do but so much. You don't have to. The biggest thing that you can do for your children is when you're with them is to be present. They want your presence. They want your love. They want your eye contact. They want you to just be with them. Even if you can't afford to do anything with them, they're going to remember your presence. And for me, that's really what it's about. I've learned how to, one, understand my kids as individuals and navigate my relationship with them as such through human design, and really know and understand that I don't have to be perfect, because the mom guilt, it's going to eat you up if you go to social media and you see the moms with the clean houses, the clean kids, they're eating 3 square meals a day with the vegetables and all of those things. The more that you feed into this idea that you have to be perfect, that you have to do all the things, you're going to burn out. You're going to end up sick. You're going to end up in a space and place where you can't do anything for your children because you need to rest, and your body is going to shut down because you're trying to do everything and be everything. You don't have to do and be everything. Do the best that you can with what you have, and know that that's always going to be enough. Even if days where you only have 10% to give, know that that is enough. I say all the time, look, I have 3 little ones. If we make it to the end of the day and everybody is alive, I did my job. Okay. I did my job. It's a lot to keep children alive, whether they're little people or older people. Okay. Because children are always doing something that they shouldn't do. So when you release yourself of the unrealistic expectations and ask for help, whether it's even just someone to be a listening ear when you're frustrated, you need to release, you need to vent. Asking for support, finding support and community. I do have a meetup group, Single Mom Society, specifically for single moms, where we come together once a month and support each other, encourage each other, pour into each other, so that we know that we're not alone in this journey. And there are people that understand the challenge and the struggle of being a single mom, so you don't have to do it alone. So that for me is knowing that you don't have to be perfect, asking for help, and knowing that sometimes you're not always going to be at 100% to be everything and do everything for your kids. And that is more than enough. And you're more than enough.
And I love the present, being present part, because that is so true and so important, and something that I rarely see, because they crave your attention, they crave structure, they crave discipline, they crave a parent's love. And so, yeah, that's just
Mm-hmm. And
good.
literally, they know, because my daughter, I'm surprised she doesn't come up here and ask me. But usually, like throughout the day, she'll say, "Mommy, can I have a hug and kiss?" And now, whatever I'm doing, no matter if I'm working, I'm on a meeting, I stop and give my baby a hug and a kiss, because that little moment, it doesn't take a lot. A little moment of you being present with them fills up their cup. It doesn't take much. But we try to think, oh, I got to sit an hour, I got to sit 30 minutes, I got to be within 5 hours. No, small moments throughout the day will fill up their cup, and they will be filled up, and know that you're enough, and know that what you're giving is filling them up.
Heck, I do that to my husband. I'm like, I want a hug and a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've been through so much, but now you radiate power and peace. What daily practices or mindset shifts helped you become this version of yourself?
Yes. So I have my 30-day calm life planner, and it's a method for living a calm life and having a calm mind. And it's checking in with God, source, higher power, checking in with your higher self, and really understanding that if your situation isn't the way that you desire for it to be, that you can sit back and look at what's not working, what you need to do, and get answers about that. But it starts with checking in, getting still, getting calm to really look at things from a disconnected perspective, because the more we can distance ourselves from the situation, the easier it is for us to see a solution and make changes. The A is for ask for support and accountability, because for me, accountability takes your chances of achieving the things that you desire from 30 to 40% to 80 to 90%. And a lot of people don't understand and realize that the more that we rely on, ask for people to hold us accountable for the things that we said that we're responsible for, the more likely it is that we'll accomplish those things. Because we can say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, to ourselves, but if nobody else knows about it, you're going to keep saying tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. But if you have someone to check in with you to say, hey, did you go to the gym yet? You're like, okay, let me get my butt up. Let me get up and go to the gym. The L stands for, like I mentioned earlier, looking at what's working and not working. Because a lot of times we get stuck in habits, we get stuck in situations because we're not we're so used to things being a certain way, we don't want to change it. It's like, well, it's okay, this is how we've been doing it, this is how things have been going. But when you can sit down from a different perspective and look at to see, okay, this is working, this is what's not working, then you can do the M to make the adjustments so that moving forward you have a peaceful life. So moving forward, you can know that, you know what, I am doing the best that I can with what I have, and I'm doing an amazing job. And knowing that, it's possible to have peace, to be calm, even when there's chaos going on around you. That is what this calm method does for me. And that is how I, apply it on a day to day basis. It might not be in that order, but sometimes I got to go back and check in and see, okay, where am I? What's going on? Why am I feeling like this? If you're in a difficult situation, okay, how did I get here? And what can I do to shift and change my situation so that I can be and live the life that I desire?
For someone listening who's in a dark place today, or might be in a dark place today, what's the first small step they can take to reclaim their power and start rewriting their story?
Yes. You talked about going from survival to thriving. What helped me get from where I was after, deciding that I was going to get out of my marriage, and I actually had to get the protective order against my husband, was one of the hardest decisions that I ever made. But I went from survival to surrender. And I accepted that I was where I was. I was in a space that I didn't want to be. I was in a space financially that I didn't want to be in. But the more that you resist something, the more that it persists. So for me, it was about surrendering to the journey that I was about to go on and accepting where I was, even though there were so many unknowns. I had no clue how I was going to take care of my kids, take care of myself, continue to provide, continue to be the mom that I desired to be for them. But the more that I accepted and the more present I was, the easier things became. We're anxious, we're overwhelmed, we're worried because we're so focused on what's next, on the future. We're down and sad and depressed a lot because we're so focused on what happened, what didn't happen, the mistakes that we made. But the more present as you can be, the more aware that you can be of where you are in the moment and accepting of that, the easier the next moment becomes. Because you realized, looking back, you overcame 100% of your worst days. Everything that you thought you couldn't overcome, everything that you thought wouldn't work out, it did, because you're still standing, you're still here, you're still alive. So you can look forward with hope and with the belief and the faith that it's going to work out, because it always has. and it always will.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's so good. What is it like to be in the black, in the positive for you?
It's no longer identifying with dysfunction as my norm. It's having peace and being able to be calm despite the chaos. Like I have my mom would tell me all the time, she's like, I don't know how you have so much patience with the kids when they're having a tantrum or they're hitting, or she's like, I don't know where you got that from. She said, because I don't have that. And that for me is being in the black when my kids can be having a temper tantrum when they're hitting and kicking and scratching and biting. And I'm like, okay, that hurts. I need you to stop without lashing out. Like that's my being in the black because I've done the work, I've done the healing work so that even in those times where it might be difficult for me to hold space for them because of their behavior, I've done enough holding space for myself that I can do that for them. The good, the bad, the ugly. I can be that safe space for them to know that even when you're having a tantrum, even when you're angry, even when you're falling out, I'm here for you and I love you. Yes, there are boundaries. Yes, I will move you away so that we're both safe, but I'm not going to try to make you suppress your feelings and emotions because I'm uncomfortable with them. So I do that for myself and I do that for my kids. And that for me is being in the black. Because as a mom and as a child, I didn't get that same experience.
Oh, that's so good. Just have you on here forever. The last question, where can our listeners find you?
Yes, I'm all over. You can Google at Jalisa the Golden Child, at Jalisa the Golden Child on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and my website is jalisahardy.com.
And I will definitely link those below. Thank you so much for coming on, Jalisa. It was so good to have you on my podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely amazing. I appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. If something you heard today moved you, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Black Passion Project for more behind the scenes and guest spotlights. And remember, no matter where you've been, you're not behind. You're becoming. Stay in the black.